Welcome to Reshair on ESPN 730. For the next hour, your host, Chris Reshair, will bring fresh air to your financial needs. Excite, educate, and empower you to make sound financial decisions. Chris is a seasoned licensed mortgage consultant with NFM Lending. Originator license number 117266. Now, here's your host, Chris Reshair.
Welcome to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshair, licensed senior loan officer with NFM Lending. Just so that you know, NFM Lending is an equal housing lender, NMLS license number 117266. Always got to get that part of the show in, folks. So anyway, if you have never listened to Reshair Radio and this is your first time, I want to welcome you to the show. We're excited to have you here and just tell you a little bit about what we do each and every week on ESPN 730 The Game, Sunday at 10 a.m. So we are all about helping you meet your financial goals for those that are in the greater Charlotte area. And really the goal is to excite, educate, and empower Charlotte teens to make sound financial decisions. And we do that by really talking about some of the biggest investments that you make in your life. And many of you know that some of the biggest investments is the purchase of a home, right? That's usually your first largest investment you make, and then you may make multiple purchases along the way when you buy and sell properties. And then hopefully your 401k and your other retirement money gets bigger than your house value at some point. But usually the house is one of the biggest investments that you make. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the process of purchasing a home today. But we do also have guests come on the show on a regular basis, and we talk about homeowners insurance, and we'll talk about financial planning. We talk about credit and how your credit score affects your ability to get good rates on mortgages and cars. So the show is all really about your financial needs, and a lot of it's focused on real estate and mortgage because that's what I do. But nonetheless, it's all about helping you, get empowered to make good financial decisions. So that's what we're about on Reshair Radio. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I am a licensed loan officer with a company called NFM Lending. We're a small branch here in the Carolinas, but we are in the top 50 lenders in the country. I've been doing this business for close to 20 years now. Been ranked among the top 1% in America as loan originators. Recently just got ranked as a 5-star professional in our area, and I'm going to be featured in Forbes magazine this coming year as a top 100 loan officer market leader award with 5 stars. So we've got all the accolades that you need in terms of trusting what we talk about here on the show today and in the future and in past shows. I will also share with you that if you like what you hear and you want to learn more about what I do and what my guests do, you can always text me, shoot me a call, shoot me an email, go out to my website, whatever makes sense for you. But I'll give you my number at the top of the show here. It's 704-277-4463. It's 704-277-4463. And the show can be found on reshairradio.com. That's RESHAIR radio.com. You can see any show its entirety, my guests, our expert contributors, and find any of the resources that you hear about each and every week on Reshair Radio. So that's the intro, folks. What we're going to do is spend a little bit of time introducing our expert contributor and our special guests. Later in the show, we plan to have a repeat offender, and that's Preston Sandlin from Home Inspection Carolina. He has been a proud supporter of Reshair Radio and ESPN The Game for probably 4 years now. I think we've been running the show. He'll be on the end of our show, and he's going to bring with us some good information in terms of the home inspection process when you're buying a home, some things that you consider, and even some important updates related to some manufacturer things that are changing with your air conditioning unit and what will happen if there are certain air conditioning units that are available right there in the open market and they have repair issues that they won't be available here in 2020. So he's got some really good, interesting information for us later. But Preston is what I call the home inspection extraordinaire. He owns Home Inspection Carolina. He's owned it for many years. He runs it all the way through Raleigh, all the way down to Charlotte, has, I think, 30-plus inspectors. And they're really about making sure if you're getting ready to sell a home, that you have your home pre-inspected before you put it on the market so you can identify any issues before it comes up and the buyer finds out. You can have those things prepared and ready to roll. There's no surprises. Or just if you're thinking about buying a home, he'd be happy to not only do the home inspection for you and the termite report and all the things that are pretty critical, but he's one of the few companies that actually will fix the small things along the way. So if you have a cabinet door and the hinges are a little bit loose, his inspectors will actually tighten down that hinge instead of saying this is an issue on this report, and fix those things right for you right then and there. So your report's a little cleaner and you're not have to worry about fuss about that little stuff. So we'll hear more from Preston a little later in the show. But without further ado, we're going to introduce our special guest, Julie Launsby from Live Love Charlotte Team Keller Williams.
Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great. So happy to have you here on the show, Julie. You've been, I think, working with our team with NFM for probably just under 2 years now. And you've worked with me and a couple of other loan officers at NFM Lending. And this is the first that we've had you on the show.
Absolutely.
So,
happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. So we're going to talk a little bit about some really cool stuff today when it comes to buying a home. But before we do, Julie, what I'd like to do is spend a little bit of time and let them know kind of who you are, what you're all about, and so forth. So you have been a realtor for just under 3 years.
Correct.
And you're licensed in North and South Carolina, right?
Yes.
So if there's anybody out there listening and you're thinking about buying a home or even selling a home, Julie can help you through those processes in either state, because we're right here on the border, right? We're right along the border, so she can cross over and get you taken care of there. So aside from you being licensed in those those 2 states, how did you get started in real estate? What got you here?
What got me in real estate? That's quite a story, Chris. My background is in retail management. I gave up that career to raise a family, stay home, raise my kids. And they got to an age where it was time for me to get back out in the community. I love interacting with people. I actually have been present for every single one of my 7 previous homes that had sold. It was all a fluke. It was either the agent was running late, they were running early, things came up, and I was always there. On the last house, my agent looked at me and she said, "You should go into real estate." She said, "You're really good at this."
So you fell into real estate by buying and selling your own property.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
So I ended up taking my classes, and I went to a party at a mutual friend's house where I met Lisa Archer, who is the CEO of Live Love Homes. And she looked at me, we had a conversation, and she said, "You're coming to work for me."
And she is that way, right?
Yes,
she's a strong
absolutely.
woman. She knows what she wants. She's a great business professional, and she saw you and thought, you need to be on my team. Obviously, your qualities must have shown that day she met you, so that's pretty cool. So, so you've been working with buyers and sellers over the last several years. What could you share with our listeners about what do you like about doing real estate the most?
I like the interaction with people. I like taking the time to walk them through the process so that they don't feel like they're going into it blind. There's so many moving parts, and I feel like if we can educate them up front, especially first-time home buyers, that they understand the process as we're going through it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, as a loan officer, I've been doing this business for a long time, and there are loan officers that get referrals by hanging out on the golf course on Friday afternoons. Absolutely. And they're doing high dollar loans. And I do those loans, and I don't mind doing them, but I have to tell you, there's a soft spot in my heart for the first-time buyer because I like to handhold. We've worked several transactions together that honestly, had we not maybe worked together, these people might not have crossed the finish line, right? But there's nothing more rewarding when you have people that don't understand the process. You help them through it, and they have doubts along the way, and they have anxiety, and sometimes there's tears, and sometimes one of us gets a phone call like this customer is freaking out and we have to talk them off the ledge. But ironically, those ones are the ones that are most happy, right? The day that we go to the attorney's office and they forget the anxiety, they forget the stress and the tears and all the stress that comes with this process. And they are so grateful,
Absolutely.
Right? And then what we see is, and folks, this is how it works in this business. I'm telling you right now, unless you're a commissioned person out there, you probably have a larger base salary than Julie and I, because our base salary is 0, okay? But that person then refers family, then refers friends and neighbors and coworkers, and that's how this business works. And if you take care of people like we sure do, that the business keeps coming. So I think the last closing that we had, he already said, you need to talk to my brother, right? I got to get you my brother. So That's the way this works. So that's why you're into real estate, and it's much the same for me. I like talking with people and helping them through the process. So last thing before we kind of go into our first break, tell me a little bit about your thoughts on the housing market. I think we've come from a 2019 that's been a very strong year in real estate, but what are your thoughts?
2019 was a very strong seller's market here in the Charlotte area. It's starting to stabilize a little bit, and I think that has to do with the change of seasons. We go into the period kind of from Thanksgiving until the beginning of the new year where people aren't wanting to list their houses as much. Buyers are saying, we'll wait until after the holidays, which ultimately makes it a really good time to buy.
I agree. And I can't speak for everyone out there, but my wife says, when it gets cold, I just want to come home and sit on the couch, pull up Amazon Prime, and cuddle under a blanket for about 3 months. Yeah. And Preston's in the house. Hey. Preston, welcome, man.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here. I did a super nice intro for you. Hopefully you can listen back all the bad things I said about you, nonetheless.
All right, here's that $20.
There you go. So anywho, all right. So, and I couldn't agree with you more. I think really though, and I'm going to speak from my experience over the last 3 years, folks, if you're thinking about selling a home, you understand that the market has had multiple bids for a lot of properties, meaning a lot more buyers than we have sellers. So there can be times when you have 2 or 3 or 4 buyers trying to bid for the same house. And when the season hits like it does now, there are fewer homes on the market, but there's also fewer buyers, right? I don't know about you, but I'm still working on maybe I'm starting my holiday list, right? I haven't even gotten there yet, and there's not that much time before Christmas
is here. You're a guy, man. You're a dude.
Right. So I hadn't started yet.
She's over here going, I'm already done.
Yeah, exactly.
I was done in October.
But the point is, people are busy. They're not all thinking about buying and selling homes, but the market is still very strong. I'm seeing that, still a lot of sellers are getting pretty close to their offer price. There are still multiple bids, but it's not as frenzied as we might see again in 2020 once the daffodils push up out of the pine straw, right? That's what. As soon as it gets warm, right? And that's what
Williams
February.
Wordsworth over there,
right? That's like February in Charlotte, right? Yeah. It starts to get warm like end of February, and Julie and I will only text each other. We won't talk because we're so busy. We don't have time to other than just text each other. It's like, call this customer, or I'm putting this offer in. I need a letter, and we're working 7 days a week all the way until we can't stay awake, right?
Oh, yeah. So it's a feast and famine.
And that would be our timer, folks, that I don't know how to turn off. How about that? So, but we got a little warning there. We've got our first segment on here of Reshair Radio. Hopefully, you're learning a lot. We've got tons to talk about here with Julie Launsby. And what we really have laid out is more of a theme about 8 strategies to successfully buying a home. Simple steps that you can follow that will walk you through that process. Again, you're listening to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshatar. Stay tuned. We've got way more to talk about. We'll be right back.
Did you know it has been reported that an estimated 80% of Americans have credit inaccuracies on their credit reports? Most people that have either inaccuracies or existing items that can be negotiated or adjusted do not know what their best score could be until they have found a new home or buying a new car or applying for a credit card. Then it's too late, and they have to accept a higher interest rate or lose the opportunity altogether. The time to work on improving your credit score is before you need it. Whether you have a 440, 640, or even a 740 FICO score, there is always room for improvement. The National Credit Care Team is comprised of individuals dedicated to helping the millions of consumers plagued by credit inaccuracies, errors, and fraud. It is our mission to help inform consumers and alleviate the stress of working with creditors and credit bureaus. Together, we can maximize your scores to get the best interest rates possible and save you money. Call now, 303-747-6390. That's 303-747-6390. Or visit us at www.nationalcreditcare.com.
Welcome back, folks, to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshatar, licensed loan officer with NFM Lending. And we've got here in the studio with us, repeat offender, Preston Sandlin from Home Inspection Carolinas, one of our show sponsors, and Julie Launsby from Live Love Homes, powered by Keller Williams. And we've got a really cool theme that we're rolling out today in terms of really just talking about the buying process, 8 strategies to successfully buying a home. And Julie, we were just kind of, telling our listeners a little bit about your background. You've been in the business for just under 3 years, but really you had tons of buying experience because you bought and sold 7 properties that you kind of helped navigate through even before you got into the business. But you really thought it was important to talk about some of these steps. And you said that really the critical step is starting with a free consultation. So maybe tell us what the consultation looks like and what do you mean by free? Because not everybody understands how a buyer pays for a realtor.
Right. Absolutely, Chris. The most important part of the home buying process is actually the consultation, where you have an agent walk you through the process of buying the home. I do that up front, start to finish, so there's nothing that is going to come up that you're not expecting to. We start with buyer agency. That's a big thing in the Carolinas. Mm-hmm. If you walk into a home shown by an agent, that agent is working for the seller.
Absolutely.
At all times. So
you're going to court with the other side's attorney.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So
doesn't sound like a good idea.
Exactly. There's a form that we fill out that kind of explains buyer agency to you, and that we in fact want to work for you, not for the seller. When we're working with buyers, of course. So we kind of go over that a little bit, what dual agency is.
So let me ask you this. If I'm looking at a house and I see the sign and I call the agent that's on the sign,
right?
That agent has fiduciary duty to me or to the seller?
That's where dual agency comes in.
Yeah.
So normally it would be the seller because that agency is already established. But it could be changed to dual.
Right.
Right.
So that agent couldn't tell me something like that there's a job transfer or divorce or something like that I might be able to get the house a little bit cheaper.
Right. You can only disclose to what the seller enables you to disclose. So you need their permission before you tell even another agent if they're working with a buyer's agent what the circumstances.
So I'd rather have an agent with a fiduciary duty to me, not to the seller.
Right.
Makes sense.
Didn't want to get you off track.
And you mentioned something about dual agency. How does that work?
Dual agency is basically like Preston said, if you call the sign call and you get a hold of the agent that has the listing, then the agent's then working for the buyer and seller. So you have to share the same information with the buyer as you would the seller. You can't give advice or give any information to either party that will lure them.
The transaction.
Right.
You're kind of like a mediator more than really advocating for some party.
Right. Okay. And dual agency, that's a whole show on itself, because even working for Keller Williams Ballantyne, if it is listed out of Keller Williams Ballantyne, you're still a dual agent if it's listed from your firm, because your firm is the actual agency.
Wow, that's interesting.
So, and if you're a buyer's agent and you found out there was a divorce or something like that, you absolutely would say, you know what, they're kind of hard up. I mean, I hate to say that, but your job is to get the best price.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So I think really what Julie's trying to share with us is you don't want to go calling the listing agent. Really, you want to have your own buyer's agent.
Right.
It's really not in your best interest as a buyer. Again, that's why that's on the successful strategies that we're talking about today. Now, let me ask you this before we go too far on, picking an agent and dual agency and all that stuff. What does, if a buyer that was listening to our show today wants to work with you, Julie, what does it cost them?
The buyer pays nothing. The sellers pay the buyer's costs.
Okay, so did you hear that? The seller pays the commission to both realtors.
Right.
So it does not cost the buyer anything.
So why would you not want your own agent?
Right.
Instead of calling the one on the...
I could get somebody to work for me with my best interest for free, or I could get somebody who also works for them. That's crazy. I mean, why would you not get the person?
And the biggest thing to remember that into is new construction. People will go to new construction, they'll walk in and they'll work with that salesperson there, and they won't have an agent representing them. What that does, that salesperson in the office works for the builder.
Right.
So who is going to ensure that everything in your process goes smoothly?
Right.
And I can tell you from a home inspector's perspective, just because you buy a new home doesn't mean there's not problems.
That's right.
Things
Absolutely.
that weren't done properly.
Absolutely.
So you want somebody working in your best interest.
All right. So the next bullet you wanted to make sure we talked about was kind of what some of the upfront costs might be for a buyer thinking about buying homes.
Right. sometimes people come in and they have, they're just starting out. They don't know what the costs that they have to pay out of pocket are involved. So I always like to let them know. In the state of North Carolina, we have due diligence. We have earnest money. In the state of South Carolina, it's earnest money only. Still, they're pretty similar in the amounts that they have to have. And that's before taking out a loan. Then they have to consider that there's a home inspection that needs to be paid for. And
Preston wants to get paid.
Those guys,
absolutely.
Man, those guys.
And that is not a cost that anybody wants to cut on. I've had people try to say, you know what, I want to save the money, but that is not in your best interest.
I've got a buyer right now. I tried to get them to Preston, and they said, no.
The average things, they say the home inspection fine's like $3,000 that you get either an adjustment. So why would you skip $400 to
save $3?
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, or save $4 and get charged with $3. That's crazy.
Right. Yep. So there's that. And then, of course, the appraisal has to be paid for out of pocket
which the lender
as well.
orders on our side.
Yep.
And that's typically going to be around $500, give or take, depending on the type of loan.
But the thing is when you hire an agent, the agent is going to set you up with these people in the process. You're not just left to go out and find the people, find a home inspector, find a lender, find an appraiser, things like that. They'll get you set up with everybody.
And that's part of the value of the agent is that they know vendors. They know all the vendors, and they've worked with several. And listen, I'm going to be straight up honest with you. That realtor wants your future business and your future family and friends business. So they are not going to set you up with a bad vendor. They're going to set you up with somebody that they trust and it's going to do a good job because they want you to refer them to their family and friends down the road.
Right.
Absolutely. They're looking for repeat business. We all are, right? And then the other point that you mentioned was that you talked to them about the qualification process. What do you tell them? I know what I could tell them. What you say.
One of my first questions is, have you been pre-qualified for a mortgage? And most people say no. Very few say yes. And I say, that's kind of the first step to our process. I don't want to show you things that are outside of your price range and make you fall in love with something that you can't get because we're never going to find that perfect house for you again. Yeah. So that's kind of where we need to start to see budget constraints. Once we get the budget, then we can go to bedrooms, bathrooms, area of town, and expand our search that way. Other things are, homeowners, when you're selling a home, you have to leave your home. You have to get your home presentable to be able to have a buyer come in and see it. So it's taking a lot of time out of people's days. So we want to make sure that the pre-qualification is done. And with multiple offers, sometimes we need to put in an offer that day. We don't have time to wait.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In this market especially. And I've seen so many people, it's like they lose 2 or 3 houses because they're kind of like, I don't know, sold. I don't know. All right, you got my attention. We got to put an offer in right away because they go fast.
I get that at least once a week where I get a text or a call that says, we found a house. They're not qualified. Can you do this right now and get me a letter? We're putting an offer in now. And because if they don't, the house may be gone.
Right.
So you have to be. Fast. So if you're technically already starting to look for a house and you haven't been qualified, you're kind of behind the 8 ball, which really rolls us into strategy number 2, which is the qualification process. And I think I'll jump in there since this is what I do day to day. So really the process should start, and this is just my opinion. Y'all can jump in if you want, but I'm of the belief that you really should work with a local lender who knows your market, who knows your agents, who knows the appraisers, who knows the attorneys, the neighbors, everything, because it makes a big difference. I mean, I do have people that say, well, I called the 800 number, or they were J.D. Powers and Associates, this or that, but they don't do the USDA program, and they don't offer North Carolina down payment assistance, and they don't know any home inspectors, and so they find they're getting
just working off an algorithm, and
they're getting 800 number experience, and your local lender really is going to be in tune with all those important
things. And
for
us, working with the local lenders too, we have that communication where we know and we have those relationships where if something comes up, it's going to get fixed.
Yeah.
Right, and you can call Chris, and I see Chris's kids on the soccer field. I mean, I can't, I don't want to name a name of a competitor, but I see them advertised at the gas station, and I'm like, I don't know that person, and I don't know where their office is, and I'm just a number to them, and I can't call them personally on the phone if I got a snag.
And when there is a snag, there's another 800 call number waiting behind it. So it's like, sorry.
For so-and-so, press 2. And
right.
For all other inquiries, press 3. I want to talk to a live person.
Right, exactly. So generally speaking, though, the process is starting with an online application. You can go to themortgagegenius.com, or a lot of people just do over the phone. I prefer the phone application personally because I want to know who I'm talking with. An online application is great for those millennial or techies that really want to do that. But oftentimes it doesn't have everything. There's no story behind the numbers, right?
Right. So
we don't learn about the job gap or, that money that's in my bank account just dropped in there yesterday from a large cash deposit. Yikes, we got it, But when it's online, I don't get to talk about those things. Hey, where did that money come from? And how did you just start this job? So that's just simply a quick phone call. Again, my number is 704-277-4463 if you need to get qualified. So. And then the obvious recommendation that we're going to have under this in terms of the third important component of qualifying is start early with the documentation. I'm working with a young family right now, and we got them qualified. We sent the homework list out. We always copy the realtor so the realtor knows what we're looking for. Then we wrote an offer, didn't have any documentation yet. Then we got a contract, didn't have any documentation yet. A week into the contract, we still didn't have any documentation. Okay.
Yikes.
And now we were due to close this week, and it's not closing this
right.
week. Okay. Then we found out the buyer got 2 new cars and changed jobs in the middle of the transaction.
Oh.
So, you know what I mean? Like you've got to be proactive. If you wait till the last minute, there's going to be problems, right? And so communication, starting the process early is super, super key.
Don't do either one of those two until you have signed the papers.
And it's going to get done. It's just not going to get done on time, right? And thank goodness they can absorb the car payments. But, they're wondering why they're not closing on time. And, not everybody follows the process as good as the other buyer, right? So we'll get through it. But start early because there's a lot of stuff to go through. So we actually are going to have to take a quick break. We've got 2 more segments to go. We're going to be talking about additional 8 strategies to successfully buying a home. So stay tuned. We're here in the studio again with Preston Sandlin from Home Inspection Carolina and Julie Launsby from Live Love Homes. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Preston Sandlin with Home Inspection Carolina. We do home inspections, termite inspections, radon testing, any of your inspection needs. One thing that we do a little different, we fix the small stuff instead of putting it on the report. So if you need a home inspection, termite inspection, radon testing, please give us a call. If it's a home inspection or a pre-inspection, 704-542-6575, or check out our website at homeinspectioncarolina.com.
Hi, Chris Reshatar here with NFM Lending and host of Reshair Radio. If you are considering purchasing a home, you may wonder what your financing options are. We offer a variety of loan products to fit your situation, including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, and jumbo loans. Here in the Carolinas, some of the most common loans are FHA and USDA. FHA loans are popular in low-income and first-time buyers due to their less stringent requirements. They also have low down payment requirements and tend to have a lower credit score requirement as well. USDA loans also allow low and moderate income households to purchase homes in an eligible rural area. Home buyers who do not qualify for a conventional loan may be able to purchase a home with USDA. If you're looking for platinum level service and open communication throughout the process, call me, Chris Reshatar, at 704-277-4463. That is 704-277-4463. LO NMLS license number 117266. Corporate NMLS license number 2893. Go to nfmlending.com for licensing information, and you can apply online at themortgagegenius.com. Welcome back to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshatar, licensed loan officer with NFM Lending. We've got a great show here lined up. We've been talking about the 8 steps to successfully purchasing a home with expert realtor extraordinaire Julie Launsby from Live Love Homes, powered by Keller Williams. Julie, we talked about free consultation that you do with clients. We talked about the qualifying process. We also now want to talk about exploring what the client's needs and wants are. And of course, we got Preston in the house. We'll talk with him a little bit later. But what is it? What's the process that you follow in terms of that third step, understanding the needs and the wants of your buyers?
Right. So we have a pre-approval now, right? Or a pre-qualification, because Chris got it to us. which is usually a quick process. It's not weeks, it's usually days. So as soon as we find out what we're pre-qualified for, we touch base again, have a conversation. And we touched on it a little bit. That's where we say, how many bedrooms do you need to have? How many bathrooms do you need to have? Is there a certain location? Do you need a master on the main level? What exactly are you looking for?
Yes, all that.
Right. What's going to check your boxes, right? I'm a little bit unique because next, once I send you some online and you say, I want to go see this one, and having the conversations with you, I kind of know what you're looking for, and especially after that first day we're out. So I like to throw kind of a curveball in when I'm out showing homes to buyers.
So this is now like previewing homes with them?
Right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so we go out and start looking, and I'll throw a curveball in and show them a home that wasn't on their list.
Cool.
More times than not, those are the homes that people end up purchasing. Because I've listened, I know what they're looking for, and I can show them what they're looking for.
Now, when you do that, does that include like, hey, this home might need a little bit of work, but it's got the potential? Do you do that, or is it more how? It
depends on what the client's looking for, because in that consultation, they're going to let us know, hey, I'm okay with having to replace flooring, or I'm okay with having to remodel a kitchen. Sometimes they say, I want it completely move-in ready. So I kind of find in the parameters that they've given me something that is similar to what they're looking for, be it a different community, be it a different style house. Maybe in talking to them, I had buyers I took out and showed them houses, and come to find out after showing them houses for 3 days, they like the craftsman's style. Okay. But they never told me, and they didn't even know it.
Just started figuring that out.
Yes.
Right.
So it's more what we get from the interaction with the people, where we can kind of throw our thoughts and ideas in. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's always great to give them another option that they haven't specifically spent time looking at online.
It's almost like, all right, put all these houses in a lineup. Pick out which one. Need to figure out what style.
Guilty.
Right.
Yeah.
And nobody knows.
He's got beady eyes.
Yeah, you don't know until you're out looking at them. So
it is interesting how a house can speak to you, right? So the last neighborhood that my wife and we went to the model home, we met the sales rep, and we were like, okay, this is nice, but it didn't speak to us. And the sales rep said, we have another community, just 10 miles up the road where we're building the same homes, but the model home is different. You might want to go see that house, right? Well, my wife walked in that house and she was just like, wow, this is amazing. It had 2 pantries. She has tons of food storage. Like, it literally checked all these boxes.
And she had that feeling as soon as she walked in.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what happened for us.
Yeah, exactly.
There were so many houses we looked at that it was like always like this. I like this and this, but
right.
This is kind of cool, but there was always a but. And then finally, there's this and we kind of got frustrated. It was like, we just not. And then we walked in this one house, and it's just like you knew it.
The one.
This is it.
Yeah.
This is the one.
And that's what you do.
Right.
You make that dream come true. That's cool. All right, so let's roll into our next bullet here, which really is preparing the purchase contract. We call that the offer to purchase, right? In our field. So what's kind of considered when you're writing that offer? We found that dream home, the one that speaks usually to the wife, but keep going.
Right.
Because
Mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Right,
and yes, I know I said ain't, but I'm sorry, so I get it.
So tell us the process there, Julie.
There's many things that go into an offer, and how strong your offer is as a buyer consists of more than just a price tag.
That's true.
Some people think, if we offer them close to list price, that's not necessarily what they're looking for. I like to call the other agent and see what that person's looking for. Are they looking for a specific date to close? Because that's part of our contract.
All right, so the timing is important.
Timing is very important. We look at how much earnest money, how much due diligence we're putting down. That's a
so that
huge
kind of really
consideration.
shows how much skin in the game
In
the
the game
buyer
you got,
has.
right,
Okay. So the
right.
more you put up front,
the more serious you are.
So that sends a message to the seller.
Right.
Okay, got it.
So those are kind of the components. You're looking at dates, you're looking at time frames, you're looking at consideration, how much due diligence and earnest money you're putting down. And
Can I ask you a question here?
Sure.
Have you ever found that the lender that the buyer is using on that pre-qualification letter can impact the offer?
There's different things. Sometimes a pre-approval amount. Sometimes people are looking to say, okay, my house is listed at 250. This person's pre-qualified at 275. They got a better chance of closing.
Okay.
So sometimes that comes into play. Sometimes their agents have educated them about smaller lenders versus big banks, the ease of closing, as well as we look at the type of loan. Is it VA, FHA? Is it conventional? Because all of those have different stipulations with them. And
so the loan product, the lender, all these different things, they're nuances, but they can come into play.
Right.
And you can play too with some of the things, like sometimes some of these refrigerators are like, our stoves are $5,000,
right.
$5,000 and $10,000.
Right.
And typically a refrigerator goes with the seller. I mean, but if you talk to your seller and say, well, look, what if we ask to keep that, but we offer $2,000 or $3,000 more versus the other person? I mean, that stove isn't going to be that important. Or
right.
The
refrigerator.
Stove may stay. I'm sorry, the refrigerator.
Refrigerator
Usually goes, but we always ask for that.
Yep. A lot of people do. They ask for it. Sellers have to pack it, move it, get the water line hooked back up. And buyers are like, I'd just rather move in and have this refrigerator ready so I can put my cold drinks for all the people that are moving me in.
That's right.
Already here.
Absolutely. And really, at the end of the day, I think it's important that we talked about at the top of the hour, we're talking about our market, that we have multiple bids. The buyers do today need to be prepared to get their dashes hoped sometimes. Right? Because you may not win that bid. And I can't speak for you because you do it more than me, but I often see the buyer missing the first couple of bids because they don't understand how competitive the market is. So they say, well, I want to offer $20,000 off the price, and I want to close in 9 months, and all these things that really focus on their needs, and they don't get it. And I have so much compassion for the realtor who is spending every weekend driving these people around until they finally wake up and go, gosh, if I want a house, I better pay a fair price.
You and I went through that with a client this year.
We did.
First-time home buyer. And, she was taking advice of friends and family members and not listening that, hey, at this price point, homes aren't going to last. And still trying to go in low when I was saying we need to go in over ask price. I was getting the pre-qualifications from Chris to some with the offers.
See, there's this thing called a seller's market.
Yes.
And that's what we're in. In a buyer's market, we could do what you're wanting to do, but it's not going to work in this market.
And we did finally get her into a dream home. So that's what's important.
Yeah. So it does work if you listen to the experts, right? Not always, but a lot. So, all right, let's go to the next step, which is really the home inspection process, the appraisal process, and the lender approval. But let's start with the home inspection. We've got expert Preston here in the studio. But what do you tell your buyers about the inspection process?
I tell them that is an expense that is worth its weight in gold.
Okay.
Because you don't know what's going on. We can only see what we can see. We don't inspect. We don't go in crawl spaces. We don't make sure that the heating and air conditioning is working. We don't make sure that everything behind the scenes is running the way it's supposed to. That's why we pay a home inspector to come in and let us know, is the roof in good shape? What are we going to be looking at to replace? And what money are we going to have out of pocket eventually in a short period of time after just purchasing this brand new house?
Right.
I say hear to everything she just said.
How many points are there on an inspection that you guys look at?
Oh, gosh.
Give us a number, a rough number.
Probably 150 inspection points.
Wow.
More.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
But I do have something that's kind of helpful. We have a inspection checklist. Now, this does not take the place of a full inspection, but we've done inspections on houses where, pretty soon in there was a deal killer. And I hate to say, just like, oh my God, this roof or something is leaking. And it's not all the time, but I hate that they're going to lose their due diligence.
Right.
They're going to lose the money they paid us. So what I did was developed an inspection checklist. So maybe when you guys are looking at the house, just, and if it's a couple, and I'm not trying to say, there's usually one that's a little more emotional and one that's more logical, and it's not always who you think it's going to be, but probably the more, because there's one that's like, oh, I love this, and the other one's like, all right, the cabinet's going to fit here. That's the person you want to talk to because they're going to be the one that's going to lock. Anyway, go through here and just, don't pick out a house and make an offer on a house that's got an obvious, thing, but that doesn't take place full inspection. But you can get that on our website,
which is
homeinspectioncarolina.com.
That's pretty easy, man. All right. So the next inspection item that we have is the appraisal. So the appraisal is ordered through the lender. A lot of buyers don't always understand that it has to go through the lender, but it gets filtered through a third-party management company. So your realtor, your loan officer, anyone in the transaction, they don't know who's going to appraise that home. And it's done independent so that whoever is going to appraise the property for whatever you agreed to pay for it, that it comes back fair and unbiased, at least as much as possible, right? Well, there's always human elements to an appraisal. So that is done, typically runs about $500 and usually takes anywhere from 7 to 9 days unless you put an expedite on it. So that's going to happen simultaneously, typically while we're doing the home inspection.
Right.
And then that third component really is not necessarily an inspection process, but you also have to get your loan approved once the contract has been signed by everybody so that the underwriter can make sure that you do qualify for that loan. So you're really doing these 3 steps all at the same time.
And all during the due diligence process.
Correct. So that we can have that sort of final decision before the due diligence date. Because if something goes awry on any of those 3 steps, you don't want to lose your earnest money.
Correct.
So, cool. Let's see. The next step really is really talking about what are some of the common roadblocks, but we really kind of have hit our timeline, and there is the timer. How about that? So we want to make sure we have time for our commercial supporters here that support Reshair Radio and ESPN 730. So we've got one more segment again to talk about 8 strategies to successfully buy a home here with Julie Launsby and Preston Sandlin. So stay tuned to Reshair Radio. We'll be right back. Hi, this is Chris Reshatar, host of Reshair Radio and loan officer with NFM Lending. Is home buying in your future? Buying a home is one of the most significant financial decisions you will make in your life. Each step in the process is important to ensure a smooth transaction. But the most important step, even before you look at houses or call a realtor, is to get pre-approved. A pre-approval is when a lender evaluates a loan applicant's eligibility for a home loan. The loan officer collects information such as their employment, income, assets, and current expenses. The lender then gives the applicant an idea as to whether or not they could afford a home loan or an approximate amount of loan they could qualify for. If you're looking for platinum level service and open communication through the loan process, call me, Chris Reshatar, at 704-277-4463. That is 704-277-4463. LO license number 117266, corporate license number 2893. Go to nfmlending.com for licensing information, or you can apply online today at themortgagegenius.com. Welcome back to Reshair Radio. This is our final segment for the day. We are here in the studio again with Julie Launsby from Live Love Homes, powered by Keller Williams, and Preston Sandlin from Home Inspection Carolinas. We've been talking about 8 strategies to successfully buy a home. We've knocked out the first 6. We're going to really just jump into number 7, which is really kind of preparing for the closing. And we're going to just go through a couple of bullets and help our listeners understand. We've gone under contract, we've ordered appraisals, we've done inspections, we've worked with lender upfront approvals. But what's kind of next step in the process here, Julie?
Right. The next thing is it kind of goes to the attorney's hands. They're going to pull a title search. They're going to make sure that there's nothing against the title whatsoever. We're going to do what's called a final walkthrough on the house, which is where we're going to go back one last time before we close on that house and make sure everything that we put in that contract that we said was going to be there is still there.
Oh, yeah, that's very important.
Did we include the refrigerator and the refrigerator is gone? We need to know that before we get to closing.
Whoops, the movers pulled it out.
Right.
We didn't know.
Right. It actually happened on my neighbors with a washer and dryer. So they had to load it back up and take it back up to the old house.
I've seen people switch it out, like the cheaper.
Yes.
They got a cheaper appliance.
They won't know.
Yeah,
They'll never know.
It's
the
actually
difference.
happened with a chandelier I've seen, like where they had this really nice, expensive. They replaced it with like a cheap one.
Right.
I did that with my chandelier on my last house, but I changed it before I put it on the market.
There you go. Or you can disclose that it is not included in the listing.
But why even do that, right? Just fix it first.
Right.
Anywho, all right. So
then a lot of it comes down to Chris. Because
which sucks.
The lender has to get everything together.
Yeah. So really, folks, if you're listening, you're getting a mortgage loan. We're making sure that your appraisal has been reviewed satisfactorily, making sure that the earnest money that you wrote and your due diligence money has actually cleared out of your account, that we have your most recent pay stubs, and all that stuff gets a final look at one last time. Ideally, we try to submit it in 5 days prior to that closing date, because that allows time for the underwriter to look at it and then time for the attorney to get their instructions and work on the final numbers, and everybody to look at the numbers before closing. Sometimes it's less than that, but we do what needs to get done, but we are usually the last ones holding the ball before the attorney has what they need to have you sign and drive.
Right. And they're going to get you out the final CD.
That's correct. And so the final CD it's like the loan estimate that the lender sends you at the front end, but it's just called a closing disclosure at the end. The document looks identical to the loan estimate in the beginning. So the paperwork is designed really via the federal government to look similar throughout the process so that you're not confused as a buyer. So you're supposed to receive kind of a preliminary CD 3 days before closing. Right. That's federal law, so the lender always sends that out. We have no problems ever getting those out on time. It doesn't necessarily mean it's your final figure and all the final numbers are perfect, but it gives you a chance to preview, hey, what do my final numbers kind of look like, and is there a mistake on here that I have time to fix? And then the attorney prepares that final CD so that you can look for any final discrepancies. But usually at that point, I'm finding after this new process, which kicked in a couple of years ago, once that final CD goes out, it's rare that there are a lot of adjustments. Maybe an inspection item got missed and we quickly update it.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of the process. And from there, it's what I say sign and drive, but it's really sign and move in, right?
Right.
And by the way, I've never seen a rocket pull up to a house, right? It's always a van or a truck. But at that point, you sign the paperwork. Right. Julie goes to the closing. I'm there sometimes, not always, depending on my schedule. But you'll sign all of your paperwork. Usually the seller signs their portion. The buyer signs their portion. But you don't always get the keys right away. Tell us about that, Julie.
Right. You've got to wait until that house records. So typically it takes a couple hours. Closings in the early mornings, mid-afternoons, usually close the same day. If you're closing too late in the afternoon, there's a chance it might not record until the next morning. Your agent...
which means you might not move in or get keys until the following day.
Yep. So your agent will actually have the keys, and the attorney notifies us when it's recorded, and we hand the keys off to you.
Sweet. So that's when we start to celebrate before the move starts, right?
Yeah.
Because nobody likes to move, right? But that's really the goal, really. We're all three of us really are here to guide you through the buying process. We talked about 8 key strategies of successful home buying. And if there's anything that we can help you with in this process, if you're buying for a 4th time or a first time, it doesn't really matter. You're going to go through all of these steps again and again. The good news is the second time you kind of know what to expect. The first time you don't.
Right.
But we can help you through all of that. So we want to make your dream come true in owning a home. If you haven't owned a home, you can call me at 704-277-4463 or text me. Again, that number is 704-277-4463. And you can find me at themortgagegenius.com. That's 3 words, themortgagegenius.com. Julie, where can they reach you if they are looking for an agent to help buy or sell?
You can reach me, call, text 704-668-5540. And you can check out everything on livelovehomes.com.
Perfect. Preston, we've got about 6 minutes of our show left. You've brought a few things that you wanted to share with our listeners today. So I want to give you a couple of minutes to kind of talk about some of the things that are hot on your list.
Okay, sure. Well, I'll dovetail into what Julie was saying with the inspections. What I'd like to do is go on the opposite side of that, the seller's perspective. She's coming in with a buyer, but there's certain things sellers can do to make sure that inspection goes well. Again, I'll go back to that seller's inspection checklist, but it should just be inspection checklist. It's on our website. If you're putting your house on the market, and you got other folks on the team that do listings as well, right?
Right. I'm 50-50. I'm half listing, half buying.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She does both.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a listing side. What you can do is download that checklist and go through it. And I promise you the inspection will go well, because on the listing side of it, you don't want the inspector to come in there and found this and that. we want $10,000 off the house. Oh,
right.
my goodness. Maybe if you go through that list and you find a lot of these problems, or have a pre-inspection, find out some of these problems ahead of time, you can get multiple bids, and maybe, that $10,000 worth of problems you get fixed for $5,000.
Right. You save some money doing it that way.
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer in pre-inspections, where when you put the house on the market, you get it inspected and find out all the problems, get multiple bids, do all that stuff on the front end. Sellers a lot of times don't like to do it for two reasons. The cost, number one. And then the second one is they don't want to go through it twice. Like, he's going to find all this stuff and I got to fix it all. And then the buyer's going to come in with their inspector and they're going to find all this stuff and I got to fix it again. Well, to that I say, let's set expectations. I can go behind any inspector and find small stuff.
Right.
Any inspector can come behind me and find small stuff. It's subjective. If we do a pre-inspection, Home Inspection Carolina does a pre-inspection, and we miss any one item over $2,000, we'll refund your money for the pre-inspection, because we should have found that.
Wow.
Yeah, but loose doors. My list and another. I can guarantee you they're going to find some small stuff.
Right.
That's just the idea for pre-inspection is to prevent that landmine, that
right.
big deal killing item. A deal is not going to go south over a loose doorknob. But it will go bad over a bad foundation.
Right.
But if you can find out about it ahead of time, you can get it addressed, and maybe this deal goes through and everybody doesn't waste their time. So big proponent of pre-inspections. On that cost part, we have something where we can do a pre-inspection, load up the report, potential buyer can buy the report, and for $19.95, and that money goes back to the seller, kind of like Carfax.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's for $20, and so also the information when a person buys that goes to the listing agent, so they can follow up with that person. Is there anything more I can tell you about the schools or anything to help sell that house?
Nice.
So it's kind of a win-win for the seller. It keeps the deal from going south, offsets their cost, and gives their agent information to reach out and try to follow up on the sale. But anyway,
you've always got all kinds of great marketing, man.
Yeah.
So talk to us about this R22 thing, because I actually mentioned it at the top of the hour.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure our listeners hear about some of these updates from you.
Yeah. So what's happening January, because of environmental regulations, January this year, 2020, in a couple of weeks, they're going to stop producing R22, which was the refrigerant forever in air conditioners. Mm-hmm. If you have an air conditioner that was installed prior to 2010, or you own a house prior to 2010, and
which is a lot of us out there,
right?
Your system's probably running on R22. That's the refrigerant. So what that means is, should your system break down, or that refrigerant leak out, or get low, or something, the technician cannot refill it with R22. The R22, like I said, they're going to stop manufacturing it in January. They can still sell beyond that what's already on the shelves.
What's available.
But it's already flying off the shelves.
Yeah.
Because people are hoarding it. I might have a little bit in my closet. So I have some rental houses. Now, having said that, the what they're using now is R410A. Depends on who you talk to. I'm not a heating and air guy, and I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn Express. And they're going to have a replacement for the R22. There's probably some heating and air guys riding around. Hey, they're going to have a replacement. What are you trying to scare people? Now, depending on who you talk to, some people say the replacement's as good, and some people say it's not as good. And there is I think they have to convert it, because the pressure is a little bit different, and there's a conversion cost. So there's kind of an argument out there. Is it all right? Let's say that your air conditioner, it leaks out, whatever, and if R22 was still available, you could just fill it up for $200 and be done. But now you're gonna have to pay to convert this. It's already 10, 12 years old.
Do you get a new one?
And is it gonna cool as well?
Right.
Should I just replace my system? So that's kind of the thing to be aware of. So just I may or may not have stocked up on R22 in my closet.
Got it.
And the price of it has gone up. I mean, it's like, man,
I'm sure.
It's like
supply and demand.
It's
That's
like
how it
black
works.
market in the back alley. Hey, R22, want to buy a watch?
Well, y'all, it's been a great show. I really appreciate having you both on. So, Preston, before we've just got a little bit here before we wrap up the show, just so that our listeners can get in contact with you, where can they reach you if they need to use your services for a pre-inspection, if they're going to sell? or if we've got some buyers out there that want to buy?
Sure. A couple of areas. HomeInspectionCarolina.com is the best place. I also have a blog, AskTheCharlotteInspector.com. You can go there. We're also on Facebook. We put out a lot of stuff. And we have a YouTube channel. It's HI Carolina, because when I named it originally, Home Inspection Carolina was too many letters, so I just did HI Carolina.
That's good.
But we put all kinds of informative maintenance videos, funny videos. I actually, a
lot of funny videos.
Yeah. Well, I give a little incentive for my inspectors to video things they find out in the field, and I put it on there. And I found out that snake and bat videos seem to go more viral. So I give them a little bit more incentive if they can find a snake or a bat video. And one of my inspectors keeps coming back with a snake video like every week. And I'm starting to look at that. I'm like, is that the same snake?
Yeah.
Are you carrying that
He's
thing
got
around?
pet snakes.
Of course, I don't know. Any listing or agent out there is like, if you find a snake, you better not put that out there.
Right.
Just don't name the address when you put it
Oh,
out.
yeah. I mean, we found a snake in my yard. I can't even tell my wife because we'll have to move.
That's right. So, well, we got to wrap up our show. It's been a great show. Hopefully, if you enjoyed Reshair Radio, we'll be back again next Sunday, 10 o'clock on ESPN, The Game. If you have any questions or you need to reach me for any purpose or have any referrals you want to send our way, you can reach me at 704-277-4463. And thanks again, guys, for being on the show.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Reshair with Chris Reshatar, a seasoned licensed mortgage consultant, originator license number 117266.